Okay, back here, we're going to come and look at my key details that I got down already. So I thought, like, when he was really, really young, big main ideas there. Dad had to work all the time, so didn't get to see him much, which would be really hard for a kid. And didn't have much money, very poor. And money is not the best thing in the world. Family and health, all those things are important. But when you don't have any, it makes things really difficult and hard. When he got a little bit older as a kid, in school, not allowed to speak Spanish, only English. Huge. That's a big conflict struggle. He moved all the time to find work during the Great Depression. Their family did. And this is what's so important to go back and reread things. I'm going to just add this word. Family moved all the time to find work during the Great Depression. He went to 65 different elementary schools. I'm just going to check the book here. So the Great Depression was a time in our history when things were really hard. A lot of people were losing their jobs. Farms were not doing really well. It was really a big struggle for so many people. So that was just a really hard time for everybody. So I just wanted to add that there. And then the last key detail, he had to quit school at age 15 to start working for money for his family. So he's growing up for some hard times. Okay, so I'm going to go back and keep reading. I'm going to think about his adulthood. And I also want to keep thinking, what was his largest struggle, in my opinion? And then what are those struggles, obstacles, how did those struggles and obstacles help him succeed? Okay. So, in 1944, in the midst of World War II, Cesar Chavez enlisted in the U.S. Navy, meaning he joined. He served for 2 years. While on a short leave, he went to a movie theater in Delano, California. The theater was segregated, meaning if you were, so basically white versus non-white. So if you were somebody who did not have the white kind of color of skin, like, really white kind of color skin, you couldn't go to like a certain theater. African Americans, Filipinos, and Mexicans were confined to a section on the right. Cesar Chavez felt wrong. He sat on the left and was arrested. In her own way, Chavez said later, "My family had been challenging the growers for some time. Now he was challenging a theater owner." After his discharge from the Navy, Chavez began dating Helen Fabella, a young woman from a family of farm owners. Helen worked in a local grocery store, and Chavez went to the store often just to see her. They married in 1948 and soon moved to San Jose, California. They had 8 children. In June 1952, Chavez met Fred Ross, who had been sent to San Jose by the Community Service Organization, CSO, to register voters for the coming elections. "He changed my life," Chavez said. Ross explained how in the United States even poor people had power. They just needed to speak out to vote. Chavez was convinced and went door to door and urged people to register to vote. At first he was so frightened he couldn't talk. "Little by little, I got confidence," Chavez later said. "In about 3 days, I was doing okay." Chavez talked and argued with people and would not give up until they agreed to register. Soon, he was hired to start CSO chapters throughout California. In 1958, he went to Oxnard and asked the farm workers there to register to vote. They asked him, "Why is it we can't get any jobs?" The jobs were going to workers from Mexico who accepted lower pay. Chavez organized a march. Reporters came and saw Chavez standing in the hood of a car and speak to the out-of-work farm workers. After a 13-month struggle, the Oxnard fruit growers gave in and hired local workers. In 1962, Chavez led the CSO and formed a fruit pickers union, the National Farm Workers Association, NFWA. By 1965, it had 1,700 member families. California grape pickers were paid about $1 an hour, which was not a living wage. From that dollar, some growers charged the workers, who spent all day in the hot sun, for every drink of water they took. In September 1965, workers in another union began a strike against grape growers in Delano. Chevy's union joined them. The two unions merged. forming the United Farm Workers Organizing Committee, UFWOC. So I'm going to take a second here too. Basically, a union is when you have a group of people who are doing either work at the same job or do similar kinds of jobs, and it's almost like kind of like a club or a team, and they look out for each other. And if some things start to go wrong, they will strike, meaning they stop working. So that means like if you were working like on a farm or at a factory or in some kind of like a business, even like schools, teachers have teacher unions. When people feel like, you know what, this is not fair, this is not good for people. Or like at schools, sometimes this happens with schools, when teachers feel like, you know what, this isn't good for the kids, we might need to strike. That's when they stop working and everybody stops. So like at a farm, if you don't have any farmers working, that's a big problem. And so that it forces the owners and it forces kind of the people in charge, like, okay, fine, we'll listen to you, we'll make changes. So that's one of the big things Cesar Chavez was doing. He was helping these people join these unions or form these unions to give them power against some of these bosses and people in charge who are very, very unkind and usually kind of very cruel. Chavez organized church meetings, sit-ins, and even a 300-mile march of underpaid California grape pickers. When all that failed, he called for a nationwide boycott of California grapes. In February 1968, in protest, Chavez stopped eating for 25 days straight. He drank only water and diet soda. His followers rallied behind him. Chavez's fast ended at a public mass in celebration. I was so much out of it, Chavez said later. All I felt was a lot of people pushing and trying to get closer. I was being held up because my legs were so weak. Senator Robert F. Kennedy gave Chavez a piece of bread to eat. I come here as an American citizen to honor Cesar Chavez, Kennedy said. I honor him for his compassion, his honesty, his truth, and dedication. The strike and boycott ended in July 1970 with higher wages and health care protection for members of Chavez's union. And so Robert Kennedy, so John F. Kennedy actually was his older brother, and Robert Kennedy was a senator. Chavez wasn't done fighting for poor farm workers. In August 1970, he called for a boycott of lettuce, and when he refused to end the boycott despite a court order, he was thrown in jail. In 1972, he fasted for 24 days to protest anti-union laws. So they were trying to some people were trying to create laws to say you can't have unions. He organized a massive voter registration drive that helped defeat those laws. Chavez knew that poisonous chemicals sprayed on grapevines to keep away insects were injuring farm workers. In 1987, he called for a boycott of all grapes sprayed with dangerous pesticides and fasted for 36 days in support of the boycott. In the years ahead, laws were passed to limit the use of these chemicals. In April 1993, Chavez died in his sleep while on union business in Arizona. American farm workers had lost their greatest champion. In accordance with his wishes, he was buried in a simple pine box. More than 40,000 people marched in his procession. 1 year later, Helen Chavez accepted the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, for her husband. At the ceremony, President Bill Clinton said, "This remarkable man, with faith and discipline, with soft-spoken humility and amazing inner strength, led a very courageous life. And in doing so, he brought dignity to the lives of so many others and provided for us inspiration for the rest of our nation's history." So, faith and discipline is basically discipline. He knew he was not going to stop working even when things got hard. He never stopped. Humility, another great word there. He wasn't out there bragging. He wasn't out showing off. He was doing it in a kind, gentle way. And just in that dignity again, knowing that nobody could push him around, and he wasn't going to fight back with violence. He was going to use his words, or the power of fasting, of not eating for some 36 days, the longest one, just to show, you know what, I'm not going to eat. This is how much I believe in this so much that things need to change so badly, I'm not going to eat. So, really big inspiration. So back to our note taker here. So just thinking about, biggest struggles or conflicts as an adult. In my opinion, what's his largest struggle? And how did dealing with these struggles or obstacles help him succeed? Or what did they learn from this? So we'll come back to finish.